Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we're doing another countdown for the end of 2020 to 2020. Today it's my top 5 biggest disappointments. These aren't the worst things in the comic book industry this year. These are just the things I had high expectations for, or even medium expectations, and they just weren't met. I was just kind of a little bit disappointed about them. Obviously, here with me to talk about that is the El Percherino himself, the Poobah of Comics. Perch, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and I love doing these with you, so I appreciate it a lot.
Well, absolutely. 2020 has been a weird year. There's been a lot of disappointments to go around, and certainly I had mine in comic books. I'm sure you had yours, and we'll see if you have any you want to mention here at the end.
Sure.
Now, before we get into this, I do want to say, if you haven't subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, give us a thumbs down if you don't. Let us know what you were disappointed about in comic books in 2020. Now, the first one is a little bit odd. People are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? It's Patrick Gleason at Marvel Comics.
Yeah, I'm with you here.
Why does he do so? He's just doing covers.
Yeah, it's been such a slow rollout. Now, granted, the timing. I mean, I've been trying to think here. Like, when were these issues written and created? You have that kind of 3-month gap between when something is done or not. So are we past? We're past the pandemic now. We are seeing more of Gleason. When I say past the pandemic, I mean that shutdown that occurred. So maybe this is the timing. But I have the same thing. Like, this was a really big get. I'm also disappointed. Marvel, they did kind of promote him with their Thunderbreakers or whatever. Stormbreakers. Yeah, which nobody cares about. But Gleason was a really big get for Marvel, and this is somebody they should have really kind of pushed a lot harder. As an acquisition, as somebody in their talent. I love Gleason. I think his artwork looks really, really nice, and I'm anxious to see more of it. And it does look like when you get into February, March, we're seeing more of it, but still more. Like, I love his covers; they are awesome. But absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Gleason and Bagley on Amazing Spider-Man, but you mentioned March or February. I looked at the solicitations; it's a third artist.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. No, exactly. It's painful to me. I think we are seeing him start to show up again in March, but it's just not much, and it makes me wonder. Marvel brings these people in, and they get a few issues under their belt, and then they vanish. Like, what's going on? Are they not paying him enough? Is there not
like the Vince McMahon thing where I'll just sign you so you don't work for somebody else?
It feels that way. It absolutely does. And they've got some pretty talented people. I mean, you kind of forget when you look month in and month out at who's on regular books. And then they've got some really talented people actually at Marvel who are either exclusives or close to it. And you see very little regular output. I mean, a cover here and there, and Oliver Capil is coming back to do more with Marvel, but just covers. It's like there's a long list of names, more than you think. So I'm with you completely here.
Yeah, C.B. Cebulski, get Patrick Gleason as a writer artist on Captain America or something.
Oh, please, absolutely, yes.
All right, so let's move in. We're going to move into an event here that was a disappointing. Now,
yeah,
in the lead up to Ten of Swords, I was like, hey, there's too many issues. They added too much stuff. It's probably too big, but I still expected Jonathan Hickman to deliver the goods on some of the things that he teased in House of X Powers of 10. There was too much influence from Teenie Howard. There was too many competing interests between what Jonathan Hickman had set up and she had set up in Excalibur. It did not mesh correctly, and it ended up being a very disjointed, weird event story, and there was way too much filler. Oh
yeah. Yeah, this event. I mean, there are definitely some people who liked it. I was not one of them. It needed a third of the issues that it had. It was so padded. Like I said, the filler was out of control. And then there was the defying expectations bait and switch of, we've got a tournament, but we're going to take a really long time getting the source to this tournament, and then we're going to have the tournament. The tournaments are silly games, and then we'll have like a battle in the last issue, basically, that says, who cares about any of that stuff? You could have short-circuited between the first issue and the last issue and skipped everything in the middle and really missed. I mean, you got Doug's marriage. There's very little you missed. And
Absolutely.
24 issues. Like, you shouldn't say that with 24 issues. If this was 6, it probably would have been a pretty strong arc, but it was a lot. And definitely a disappointment. I don't know. I'm curious to see the sales. I would love to see track if things dipped, but I suspect, and I know a lot of other retailers in the area who are stuck with a lot of extra copies of this.
Yeah, they're definitely big fans of Ten of Swords, and they will passionately let me know that, you know, Saturnine being a conniving person and putting them through the ringer and pulling the rug out from underneath them was in character and, you know, exhilarating fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not for me. As real, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But you know, at least they got to kill a cat or something. But this is you know, this is the first big X-Men event since Jonathan Hickman took over, and the expectation was there that it was going to be maybe not House of X Powers of 10, but somewhere around there.
It needed to be bigger. I mean, this wasn't the event out the gate. I think there will be some pain coming out of this. I think it's going to hurt the lineup. I think you have kind of a confusing rollout of books after this. You have, I mean, even though a lot of people have panned it, the Children of the Atom book that's been delayed and put on and delayed and put on, and that kind of stuff, that instability doesn't help anything. And so you come out of this event that was not what people expected into a lot of kind of random instability, X-Force. You know, you picked up that issue after Ten of Swords, and like it didn't matter that Ten of Swords existed. It's just like we're right back to things, and so I think that it's definitely a challenge. X Factor's off doing its own little silly stuff, and I don't know. I worry about what 2021 is going to be for the Reign of X line.
Absolutely. So the next big disappointment for me was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So in 2019, at the end of the year, it's like almost the entire year was City of War. And I got about halfway through that event, and I was like, I really wish this would be over, because that was also really strung out. And I was like, what are Eastman and Waltz doing here? This is pretty boring. And it finally ended. I was like, thankfully, you know, we'll get back to some good TMNT stories. And when it came back, obviously Sophie Campbell became the writer. Done great work on TMNT in the past, but it's so depressing. It's the brothers are disconnected. They can't talk to each other. And it's all about, I think, Jenica running like a soup kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, it is. I mean, you hope that this is kind of would this be like the Nightmares arc for Tom King's Batman? That's what it reminds me of. You're just being drugged through this very down period. And hopefully there's some big kind of rebirth at the end of this, or they swing back up and we get the triumphant moments. But it like you said, it feels like it's been going on and it hasn't been going on that long, but it feels like a long time.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. You know, I got a little boy in my house that he's becoming a turtle maniac. I would like to read some of this stuff with him, but no, he'd never want to read a comic book again. It's so boring and depressing, and it's kind of weird the life cycle of TMNT, whether it's the comic book or an animated show or whatever. Normally, when they introduce the female turtle, you know, the reboot happens within a year or two, right?
That's been the past. So I mean, I don't know. There's a temptation for a lot of writers to want to take us down like a really, like I said, depressing tone, kind of unpeel some stuff, bring people down to the bottom, and then build them back up again. And I think a lot of writers get super excited about writing the descent, that they love to just tear people and deconstruct people down, and then they kind of forget the swing back up, and they eventually just damage the character down to the point where you no longer care about it coming back up because it's lost all the fun and energy. And it feels like this series is dangerously close to that. Yeah,
it's TMNT. I want to say 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fighting other ninjas, or maybe, you know, some Baxter Stockman robots or something like this, saying cowabunga, eating pizza, and moving on to the next adventure. Like, it's the wrong title for this kind of story, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's just not right for the book, or at least not this volume of it. You can do little bits of this to provide them some conflict to swing up from, but like know when to say when. It's too much.
Absolutely. So let's move back into the event circuit. And this was the big DC event that was going on when they returned from the pandemic. boosted sales on Batman. And I think most of the Batman related titles, it was very poorly constructed. You can tell it kind of happened at the last minute. A lot of the tie-ins did not make sense chronologically. The things that were happening there didn't make sense with the main Batman story. The art was fantastic. But the other thing that happened was they basically just recycled the story that Tom King had done in City of Bane. And, it had been done up 10 or 15 times in the last 20, 30 years in Batman. And then, like when he started, James Tynion started Joker War. He started in the middle of the Joker War, and he just slow rolled it to get to issue 100. Mm-hmm. And it just, I know a lot of people swear by this, but I was just bored.
It was fun. It was very different, of course, from Tom King's, Batman that he took over for. I think, in general, DC has a problem where the Joker is just all over the place constantly. It's the go-to is, when you're out of ideas, you bring in the Joker, and we just do that every few months. I'm with you. The pacing was strange here. It started off with kind of a bang, and then it just wandered for a while. And when it finally came back, we didn't get the big resolution. It really felt, and I think this is true, that Tynion thought this was his end on the book. Yes. That he was going to write this and it was over. And clearly, I think somewhere, I would guess right around the first issue of Joker War, or right around that part, it becomes clear he's going to be the ongoing writer. So now, rather than building up to your conclusion, stretch it on out, insert a bunch of things that are going to, you can pick up later, plan out for your next year on the title or 2 years on the title, or whatever it happens to be. And so it feels, it's why the pacing is you're right here. It definitely feels like he loses the plot, and I'm just going to, take away the urgency. And when you've got a story like Joker War, urgency is kind of a key point in making the whole thing work.
Yeah, and there's the same conflict multiple times. It was Batman getting beat up by Punchline for Harley Quinn to come in and save the day. Obviously, the first time she kind of lost, the second time she won. And it's like, okay. And then he basically gave us a better version of the Batman Alfred death resolution. But other than that, and then reading like Nightwing and Batgirl, it was discombobulating trying to keep up with the whole event. So I was personally disappointed. Hopefully there are brighter days in Batman's future now that James Tynion knows that he is the permanent guy on the book, and he has what appears to be a long-term plan leading right into Future State, probably in a few years. And I don't know. Let's get to my biggest disappointment. This is always going to be my biggest disappointment, probably for the foreseeable future. It's Valiant Comics. It still sucks. Plagued by terrible creative. Valiant Comics was so good up until 2017, 2018. Whatever Harbinger Wars 2 hit, Valiant Comics just died. And I'm just waiting for the characters to come back. And I know it's a false hope, Perch. They can't come back because they've lost the magical ingredients, what made Valiant Comics amazing. But I want it back so bad. Yeah.
I'm with you. I think Valiant's strange as a company, because if you think about it, they've had two kind of big moments in their company. They've had two eras that had a lot of potential and then hit a wall. And it's like, are they going to get a third chance? I mean, very few companies get like a third go at it. And I don't know why. I mean, Valiant is puzzling, because with this latest with Dinesh and everything they did during the last launch, I think it would be hard. I remember thinking at the time, it would be hard to screw this up. It's going to be hard for you to like overtake a Marvel or DC. You're not going to become massive, but you're going to solidify yourself as being a strong performer, getting some good books out, and just being a very solid, stable company, and I remember thinking it's going to be very hard for them to mess that up. And they found a way. It
wasn't Dinesh.
No,
it was bought out by DMG Entertainment. Obviously the same thing that happened the first time with Acclaim.
Exactly. History repeated itself, and it blew up. It's exactly that. I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence. I mean, they've talked about their plans coming into 2021. It doesn't sound good. In fact, I think it sounds worse.
Yes.
You start to question. It's like this and IDW and some of these other companies that are just burning money. It's like, how are you still going at this point? Because you can look at what they're planning for 2021. You're like, this is not going to sell big numbers. This isn't going to get anywhere. They're not going to be good movie property adaptions. So are we just kind of blowing other people's money until it's all gone? That's what it feels like, which is depressing.
It is depressing because, obviously the superhero go-to companies are DC and Marvel. For superhero comics outside of that, especially for a shared superhero universe, there's really nowhere else to go other than there's a couple pocket universes like Black Hammer and things like that they're perfectly fine. But Valiant had this wonderful shared universe. It was so small that they could do the continuity correctly, keep everything interwoven. It was just managed so perfectly by Dinesh and Warren Simmons. And, obviously they're no longer there. They're a bad idea now. But I keep praying that it's going to come back, and I need to stop.
It seems very unlikely. I mean, at this point, it's just the DNA is not there. And again, I don't see how a company gets a third shot at things. I don't know, but it's just spinning wheels at this point. So I expected more out of Valiant. Frankly, I expected more out of a lot of other companies too.
But this is the one that breaks my heart because Valiant was bulletproof under Dinesh. And it's sad how far it's dropped. But those are my 5 biggest disappointments. I want more work from Patrick Gleason. I expect a little bit more out of Jonathan Hickman's first X-Men event. I certainly expected more out of Joker War. And I don't know. That's it. You got any big disappointments from 2020 that I didn't list that maybe you want to air right now?
Well, I mean, I think it's the lessons learned from 2020. So we had the market shut down. Obviously, that was disappointing to see that hiccup hit. But it was a chance for, I think, DC to kind of come out the gate and do a better job with marketing. It was a chance for Marvel to kind of do some soul searching and figure out, that maybe they published too many books and have them more streamlined. So I think the disappointment for me is coming right here at the end of the year as I look at Marvel in March and they're pushing out, 66 odd titles and a ton of number ones and a ton of like 33 different trades. It's a massive amount of books. And DC, despite extra time and lots of coordination, blew their March launch. You had kind of their biggest announcement they were saving around Justice League, released by accident out on Twitter. It's the disappointment is you had a year where the world recalibrated and you could have used that to make your company stronger. And what we see is 2021 will be the same stuff from Marvel, the same botched, silly, marketing out of DC, just with less people. And the disappointment I have is like, why didn't these companies learn their lessons? Why didn't they use this as a moment to reimagine themselves? A lot of other companies did, but in comics, it's like everybody just kind of hunkered down and said, well, all right, we can kind of get back to work now. Let's just keep doing the same things we're doing. And I think that 2021 and 2022 have all the potential to be really down bad years for the comics industry. And the reason behind that will be you had a chance to fix yourselves and you missed it. That's my disappointment.
It is disappointing. In the military, when you had a big thing happen, you'd always do an after-action meeting, and the commander would be like, what did we mess up this time? Because what are the things we could never do again? And that way, the next time we do it, it doesn't happen. All those things are fixed. It feels like DC and Marvel, maybe the entire industry, are kind of just doomed to keep repeating themselves.
Yeah, and I think they maybe in some cases around the office they're feeling very comfortable and secure because they've managed to survive bankruptcy and massive leadership change and all kinds of things. But I think the world is different now. There's not a ninth life to spend here. I think some people have to get their act together and fast because this is coming. I'm not saying doom and gloom like the comic industry is going to end by any stretch of imagination. It's just when you have these big moments, you have to respond to them. And if you don't, somebody else will. And
absolutely. The world will pass you by.
Yes. And
because you're stagnant doesn't mean everyone else is.
The world is definitely not stagnant. So I'm hoping that there's a wake-up call fast within these companies because, a lot of people casually say we could lose Marvel or DC. If we lose them, we kill off a lot of things die. So we need them to be healthy, but they are not right now.
All right, Perch. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this was a fun conversation, and I'll definitely talk to you very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.